Hello and welcome to today's show on what the experts know on learning and education. I'm your host, Astrid Witt, and I'm so excited to share the knowledge, the skills, and the visions of my guest today, who is one of the most outstanding experts in his field, Steve G. Jones. Steve is a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist and has been practicing hypnotherapy since the 80s. He is the author of 22 books on hypnotherapy. Some of his credentials include being a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists, American Board of Hypnotherapy, president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists. He's on the board of directors of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Lung Association, and he holds many more credentials. In order to keep up with the very latest in research, he regularly attends training conferences. And what I find most exciting is that he also holds a master's degree in education and is currently involved in his doctorate in education. The combination of these two fields of expertise is what brings him on today's show. Imagine living the life you deserve to live, a life in which you have unlimited wealth, focus, and confidence. You see endless, exciting possibilities, and you feel so good about being alive and looking forward to the unfoldment of each and every new day. Shouldn't that be what our schools should be teaching to our kids? Isn't that what education should be all about? Preparing kids to become adults, to enjoy life fully, and have the means and the skills to experience it as a humbling gift you're so grateful for that you wish to contribute whatever you can to make others enjoy life in a similar way? It is definitely my vision for education. With Steve, I have found an expert who has so much wisdom and experience to contribute to his goal. Steve has devoted his life to making sure you achieve these goals easily. He has focused his genius on developing a powerful line of hypnosis CDs to launch you in the direction of ultimate success. He also sees clients in his private practice, among them many celebrities in and around Hollywood. He's known for amazing results for a wide number of conditions, some of them being weight loss, anxiety, smoking cessation, test-taking, phobias such as fear of flying and public speaking, nail-biting, road rage, and. His newest passion is in making use of the newer findings in brain research and using the latest audio technology to even more enhance the power of hypnotherapy. Welcome, Steve G. Jones.
Well, thank you, Astrid. Good to be here.
Well, I'm so honored to have you on today's show and would like to start off with some common misperceptions on hypnosis and hypnotherapy. I know that there are quite a number of fears related to being hypnotized, especially when you see people doing silly things on popular TV shows. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what hypnosis is, what it's not, and why hypnotherapy could be such a valuable tool?
Sure. Well, hypnotherapy is just a relaxed state of mind in which you're slowed down a little bit. And it turns out that when you're slowed down a little bit, you're also more perceptive. You're more open to positive and powerful suggestions. Of course, you're also more open to negative suggestions, so we need to be careful what we expose ourselves to. But hypnosis has gotten a sort of a negative rap over the years because of some of the misconceptions, as you pointed out, some of the movies that you mentioned, specifically Curse of the Jade Scorpion. There's no movie in particular that's given hypnosis a bad rap, but every now and then one comes out. One that sticks in my mind is Curse of the Jade Scorpion by Woody Allen. It's actually a great movie, very entertaining, but in the movie, this guy is put into hypnosis and he's reactivated on the phone. Woody Allen is the character who's under hypnosis, and anytime he's called on the phone and he hears the word Madagascar, he has to go rob his neighbor or rob a bank because he's been pre-programmed to do it, and that's the word that activates him, activates the hypnotic programming that he's been given. So that's not reality. That's not really what happens. That's not what hypnosis is about, but every now and then we see these movies that make people either think, well, it's just hokey and not real, or if it is real, then it's some sort of mind control. It's got some sort of negative connotation and negative powers. And really all hypnosis is a normal, natural, relaxed state of mind that we go into and out of every day of our lives. Anytime we daydream, we're essentially in hypnosis, but we're just putting positive suggestions in the person's mind while they are there.
That's a beautiful explanation. So what is the most common field you're using these techniques for? What is it that your clients usually come with, and what can you do? How long does it take? Just tell us a little bit about the daily workings with what you do in hypnotherapy.
Well, the common things I see clients for are things like weight loss and getting motivation and earning more money. These are the things that they want to work on. They usually want to have something that they don't have, which is a thinner body or more money or more motivation, or they want to stop smoking. They want to have the ability to stop smoking. So those are the types of things that I deal with. Those are the types of things that most hypnotherapists deal with. And so when we do that, you ask how long it takes. It depends on what we're working on. Weight loss, for example, can take a while because if someone is, let's say, 150 pounds over their ideal medically advisable weight, well, first of all, we always get the permission of a medical doctor to work with them. We get them on board with us, and they don't have to actually do anything, but they do have to write some sort of letter or something that we put in their file saying that it's okay to work with them, and then we move forward. And usually, in working with someone who is very overweight, it can take up to a year or so because I want to keep working with them. So that's an extreme case, someone who's overweight, 150 pounds overweight. If we look at something at the other end of the spectrum, we see something like stopping smoking, which can be handled in 3 sessions. And we're talking about 1 session a week for 3 weeks, so that can be handled in 3 weeks. Some hypnotherapists actually do it in 1 week. If we look at something sort of in the middle, like motivation, I normally like to do that in about 6 sessions. In other words, 6 weeks. 1 session a week for 6 weeks to get them up and running in the direction that they want to go.
So what is it that actually makes people stop smoking after 3 weeks if they have struggled with a habit like that for years or done it and then started again and come off again, and then with hypnotherapy do you get them off for good, or is the chance to fall back into that old habit still there, or how does that work?
Okay, a lot of good questions in there. First of all, the mechanism by which it works, we use approximately 10 different techniques. One of them is aversion therapy, and everyone's probably familiar with that. You just set it equal to something that they don't like. For example, if they don't like liver, then the cigarette will be like liver. And anytime they think of a cigarette, they'll think of liver. So that's one of the techniques that's in there. And as you can imagine, that's a good enough incentive not to smoke. We also do a number of other techniques, both from neuro-linguistic programming and from hypnotherapy. So we combine a lot of different things together to make it work. Now, when I say we, I mean hypnotherapists in general, but everyone has their own way of working. So not everyone uses all 10 of these. Some hypnotherapists have a different list of techniques they use, but essentially we're hitting them with everything that we can to make cigarettes unappealing and to give them new choices. So in the first session of 3, I would work with them on confidence. I don't even deal with smoking in the first session. I just want them to be confident, because a lot of times people don't quit things that they should quit because they don't have confidence. Second session, I work with stopping smoking directly, and the third session is sort of a cleanup session where I deal with any triggers that may still be causing them to smoke, and I clean those up. And, of course, I give the client a recording of each session so they can program themselves at home on an ongoing basis. So that's essentially how it works. And I believe you had another question or two in there. I didn't want to skip over them. Do you recall what those were?
Well, basically, yes, you covered most of it, and I don't remember what I asked. Okay. So that you get back to me. So, but what I find intriguing, do I have to show up at your office, or can you work that long distance on a phone, or can you, obviously, anything that you do personalized to my condition to me seems like it would be better working. So anything individualized with you, is that true? That do I have to get to your office, or can you work it in different ways?
You do not have to go to my office or to any other hypnotherapist's office in order to get the benefits of hypnosis. If you think about it, if you have a root canal, you have to bring your mouth and the tooth to the dentist so that he or she can perform the root canal. They couldn't do that over the phone. And same thing with any kind of surgery. However, hypnotherapy is just words. All we do is relax someone into a state of hypnosis using words, tell them to change using words, and then bring them out of it using words. It's just words. So we can put that on a recording for them, an MP3, which can be purchased over the Internet, or a phone conversation. It can be done over the phone. The person just makes sure the phone is lodged near their head or puts it on speakerphone and just listens to the session. So a personalized session can be done over the phone or through a file sent through the Internet, or if they don't want a customized session, if they want just a generic session, those are very powerful too, and those can be purchased. They're already made, and they can just be purchased and downloaded, or they can be purchased on a CD.
So I basically get all the basic instructions, the way to relax into my calmness. All that comes with the CD, and then obviously, if my aversion is not to liver, but to something totally different, then anything pre-recorded with liver would not work as well for me, and I would have to replace that word with something which I personally find totally I wouldn't like to inhale anymore. So is
right.
that the difference between generalized CDs and personalized phone calls?
Yes, or personalized CDs or personalized MP3s. Yes, the generic sessions are very powerful because they don't specifically say liver, and they don't specifically say how many times a day you smoke. They leave that blank. They say replace it with something, or think of something that you don't like, something that really bothers you, something you find disgusting, that if you were to look at it or smell it, you would be disgusted by it. And so that's how the aversion therapy works. The mind is then left to fill in the blanks, so that it becomes essentially as powerful as a customized session.
That sounds beautiful. I would like to change the direction a little bit towards education and children. And to start out, obviously you have a perception of the way our education system is run, especially as I know that you have a master's in education and you're currently working on education. So what do you perceive? What is good with our schools? What is not working with our schools? Or what is your perception of that?
Okay, well, just to be clear, I have a master's degree in education. I have a specialist degree in education, which is beyond the master's, and I'm finishing my doctorate in education. But more specifically, my doctorate is in educational administration, so I'm very tied into the way that administrators are being trained in both the K-12 system, which is our system from kindergarten to 12th grade, and the university system. My specific degree is in higher education, but they mix us all together in our cohorts, so I'm also interacting with the K-12 administrators as well, and I'll be done with that in a couple months. I'll be Dr. Steve G. Jones in a couple months, so I'm right there at the end. And I can tell you that what's going on in the educational system is that there's, right now, there's a lack of funding. Number one, that's probably pretty obvious to a lot of people, but there's a lack of funding going on. But in general, there's widespread disagreement about certain fundamental things. For example, what's more important? Is it more important to teach to the test, like the SAT, for example? Is it more important to teach what's on the test, or should students be more well-rounded? And now we also see hybrid schools coming into play. We see in the United States hybrid schools where you can go online part-time or in-person part-time. We also see online classes. There are high schools, legitimate high schools, that are online completely. Now, we have to look at that and we have to say, well, is that cutting edge? Is that the future? Or is it going to take away from the socialization of children and even cause more of a lack of well-educated students? And I don't have an answer for you, but I just want to get all these issues out. And what we really have to think about is, are we continuing to train the people who are going to fill the roles of doctor, scientist, chemist, these higher roles that can't be filled by entrepreneurs. It's nice when people drop out of school and they make a bunch of money and everything is wonderful, and we see more and more of that, but these roles can't be filled by those people. These roles need to be filled by people who are highly educated. And so are we encouraging people to become the doctors and the specialists and the scientists of the future, or are we saying, okay, well, we don't have enough money and education's not that important, so we're not going to worry about that?
Well, what personally Germany has an education which is segregated actually between those kids who learn faster and those who don't learn as fast, and the ones who learn faster are specifically trained throughout most of their last 9 years of school towards these higher goals of becoming a scientist, cutting-edge doctor, all these things. And obviously what we had for years were about 20% of kids graduating from this kind of system, which would lead them directly into the best universities and get them into higher education jobs. Now, obviously, 20% of high school graduates is not something we could compete with worldwide, so there has been a huge movement to increase that to about 50%, which we have now achieved. But the downside is that not 50% of the population is actually wired or geared or interested or in getting these higher jobs. And what happens is that most of the higher education in good high schools is very much towards paperwork and putting and writing what your brain has accumulated. And there are kids out there today who have wonderfully functioning brains, but they lack the ability to translate that into onto a piece of paper in good writing. But they can solve problems at increasing speeds. So there's a movement out there to increase experiential learning, which works for every child beautifully, and the way we teach at the moment, the academics, only works for about 20% of kids really well, while the others are really struggling with this kind of concept. So I always wonder, obviously we need the well-educated kids, but do we really need to educate everyone who enters high school into this kind of path that would lead into universities, into being scientists, into being doctors, into being lawyers?
That's a great point, and I think that you and I are on the same wavelength there with that, because what I feel is that we're going to have people at all levels, if you want to look at it that way. I don't like to look at it as levels because that implies that some people are better than other people when really they're just doing different jobs. But if we look at it as we need people in all these different types of jobs, why would we try to force someone to be a surgeon who is really just going to end up collecting trash? That's what they're going to do, and that's what they're happy with. They feel comfortable with that. We even see people who have a very high aptitude, very high IQ, very high skill level. They would do very well in testing. They could very well become those people who are in what we would consider the upper echelon, even though I don't like to look at it as levels, but they don't want to do that. They don't feel comfortable doing that. They want to have what we would consider a lower level job. So forcing people to do that doesn't make any sense, because they all eventually, water finds its level. They all want to eventually gravitate towards something. What we do see consistently in the United States, and this is the only study that I know of that's shown consistent results, we don't like to say proven in research. We like to say it demonstrated something, but it demonstrated consistent results, and those are the studies that show that socioeconomic status is related to how well you do in school. That's why the doctor's kids become doctors, because for some reason, the money is affecting things. It might be the drive of the parents. It might be the resources that they have. We're not quite sure what it is, but that is consistent. So these people are replicating themselves. The doctors are replicating themselves, and the lawyers are too. The wealthy people are replicating generation after generation, and we see the same thing in the impoverished groups. They're replicating as well, and it's very rare when they would jump out of that and become what would be considered overachievers, because they would then lose rapport. These are just theories that perhaps what would happen is they would lose rapport with their siblings or their parents or their surroundings, and they would not be reinforced behaviorally to persist on that course. So these are the things that we're seeing, and I'm just throwing this information out there to further our discussion on this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely there is segregation happening, even if it's not being addressed that way, or even if our public schools are for everyone. What does happen is that if you go to a high school in a poor neighborhood, obviously it's not, in the United States, it's not half as well funded. Teachers are not half as well paid. And so by design, the public schools in struggling neighborhoods do not have the same quality as public schools in high-quality neighborhoods. So
exactly.
that doesn't help to really grow kids. But I have another point there. What I feel increasingly is that we have wonderfully educated lawyers or doctors, and I know of so many lately who are totally unhappy. They have their bank account is filled, they have the house, they have the car, they have everything you would think of, but what they don't have is they get into depression. They feel burned out. They feel stressed. They lose their kids, their wife, because they're never at home because they're so hardworking. What is the goal in life? To strive after a highly respected profession, earning a lot of money and being totally unhappy on the way, or to strive for your passion?
Right, I agree with that, and that would get us into a different discussion altogether, which could be very interesting, and we do see a lot of that. I've had friends who I remember I had a friend who was an attorney. He stopped being an attorney. He's a real estate attorney, and he was in graduate school at the University of Florida when I was there. When I started graduate school, that's where I was in psychology, and he had changed gears completely. He decided he wanted to, quote-unquote, help people at a higher level, and he felt that he wasn't serving humanity to the best of his ability by, getting people's real estate deeds signed and so forth. So he switched gears. Now, whether any of that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I think a lot of it, as you seem to touch on, is caused potentially by the parents pushing them in a certain direction, which isn't appropriate, or the stress to replicate, to carry on the family tradition or so forth, when actually they don't feel that way. This is a completely different person. This is not mom or dad. This is a different person altogether, and they would rather go in another direction. So we do see a lot of people getting to a certain point and then wanting to change careers, or we see the dentist starting to paint pictures on the side, wishing she was actually a painter because she didn't really want to be a dentist. It's just what she has to do, and now it's what everybody expects her to do.
And this, I think, is a growing problem, because personally I too know more and more high achievers who step out of their high achievement realizing that it's not what makes them feeling fulfilled. And I know that many of them end up with a hypnotherapist to get rid of the problems.
That is true.
That's why I'm interviewing you, because I have a feeling that you're kind of a repair shop for emotional damage, which we have acquired during our childhood, during our formal education in school, where one big problem I perceive with standardized testing is that it compares kids who shouldn't be compared. There's a wonderful quote saying comparison is the beginning of unhappiness, because obviously you will always find somebody who's better, and it just makes you aware that you're not good enough, and that robs you of your self-esteem, and then they end up with you to get it back.
That's a very good point. Are you familiar with the Chitlin's test? Have you ever heard of that, the Chitlin's test?
No.
The Chitlin's test was developed in the United States probably in the 70s. At least that's around the time I started my higher education in the 80s, and I believe that it was started in the 70s. The Chitlin's test was an IQ test for African Americans, and it was specifically designed to ask questions that they would relate to, and that the European Americans, if you will, would probably not relate to. Because it was decided, and rightfully so, it was discovered, I should say, that the IQ test given in the United States was specifically geared toward people of European descent, in other words, white people. And it specifically precluded black people from doing well in it, people of African descent. So the Chitlin's test had a lot of African-American slang and jargon in it. Like one of the questions had to do with, it said something along the lines of, what is a gas head? And I don't even remember the answer to that. But it's something that most people at the time, if they were of European-American descent, would not know what that means. It was something that was actually a term used among African-Americans almost exclusively. So when this test, when the Chitlin's test was given to Americans of European descent, they failed it. And when I say failed it, I mean they scored a low IQ. They were considered essentially idiots, if you will. And idiots is actually a legitimate term that we get from testing. So what was discovered from all of this is that we don't really know who is intelligent and who isn't. A lot of it has to do with upbringing and surroundings. The intelligence tests were clearly skewed, and that was brought out by this test, which was no more biased than the standard test was at the time. So we are kind of left with, well, you know, who is intelligent and who isn't. So that's one of the major concerns. It's still ongoing, a major concern about standardized testing, that it really, for a number of reasons, that being one of them, isn't fair.
I absolutely agree with you, and what I want to mention is that the findings of emotional intelligence are a much better predictor for later success in life, and I mean rounded success on all, in all areas of not only being measured by the money you make, but also being measured by the steadiness of relationships you can up. How often do you get your divorce? Are you with your partner for a longer time? What kind of a relationship will you have with your kids? And that predicts basically your happiness with your current situation. So they found that they have Daniel Goleman was instrumental in getting this thing out into the world, that the emotional intelligence is a much better predictor for later success, and that is something which our schools not only neglect, they don't measure, they don't foster it, and what we have is the more everything gets economized by building bigger and bigger schools, so that with fewer teachers you can manage more kids. Actually, you raise the emotional distress amongst these children, and that lowers their capacity to start thinking, to be creative, to have their brain functioning, because they're so overwhelmed with negative emotions most of the time. And that's where I think hypnotherapy comes in all the time. That's why I'm talking to you, because I want you to yes, I mean, you know of all the problems people have accumulated during their teen years, during their early childhood, and I have a feeling that you're not a repair shop. That would be a wrong way of putting it, but actually helping get them back on track.
I agree with that. I like how everything comes back to hypnotherapy. I do like that. One of the things I'll just before I forget to mention this, in 1983, a great book came out by Howard Gardner called Frames of Mind: The Theory of Multiple Intelligences. And this, what Gardner realized, Gardner's a researcher, and I believe he's still around. What Gardner realized,
yeah.
Okay,
I know his work. Yes.
Oh, yeah, he's come out with all kinds of intelligence, even natural intelligence, the ability to relate to nature. So he's almost taken it too far, but he's opened our minds to the challenge that a lot of standardized tests do not predict performance, and that's pretty much the essence of standardized tests. When you take an SAT test before you go to college, the college wants to know if you'll perform there. You know, Harvard wants to know if you're going to be able to cut it, and if you're not going to be able to, they're going to look at the test to determine that, and also your grade point average. But Gardner realized that a lot of the IQ tests just weren't predicting performance. There wasn't a good correlation between what the IQ test said and the way that people were performing. So he realized that there must be some other aspects of intelligence that we're just not seeing, we're just not measuring, because they're not showing up for this person, yet they're doing very well anyway, despite their low intelligence. So what he found out was that they don't have low intelligence, we just weren't testing it the right way. Sort of like the Chitlin's test, he started bringing out these things, such as emotional intelligence, that really spoke to the full spectrum of intelligences that an individual can have.
Isn't that the perception we should be having in raising and educating children, to bring out the full spectrum?
Absolutely.
Do you feel that schools are doing a good job at that?
No, I don't feel that they have the ability to do that. It's sort of like any government institution, probably anywhere in the world. You know, you go in there, and the goal is to get you processed. They want to process you. So you're just a number, and you're just in this assembly line that has to be dealt with, and so you get put on the belt, and along you go. So that's the way the educational system is. You know, a student comes along, they're not treated as a unique individual. They're just put in this assembly belt, and they go along. It's sort of like the cartoon from the 70s, I think, the Jetsons, where, you know, when they get dressed, there's a machine that brushes their teeth and a machine that combs their hair and puts their clothes on, and off they go. That's the way the educational system is. No one's unique. They're just part of the machine. And so on they go. The reality is that we don't have the resources to treat individuals as unique. That's why, you know, when parents do have extra money, they hire a tutor, or they put their child in a private school or something along those lines, which does give them a competitive advantage.
Do you really think it's only a matter of resources? Because I've come up with a number of speakers. Actually, you know that I'm one of my topics is to really rethink the way we treat our kids, because personally I feel that if you ignore their uniqueness, you do much harm to all those who do not show up on the top of our current comparative system. If we have 30% dropouts, anywhere beyond 20% dropouts, those kids who are dropping out are not dumb. They're not stupid. They're not unable to learn. But what they do get from school is a distaste for learning. And they always get that feedback that they're not good enough, that they are not comparing up to standard, that their reading skills might be below grade level. Comparison. And psychology knows perfectly well that this is the worst thing you can do to any human being.
I agree with that.
And resources is, of course, something to do, but there are new ideas out there that true learning happens when you support a child simply by loving it, by supporting whatever it does, and that parents can be wonderful teachers without knowing anything about the subject their kids are learning, just by supporting the kid and being in awe at the willingness of the child to step forward.
I agree with that. And in my quote-unquote previous life, I had a couple kids and homeschooled them for a number of years, about 5 years. I was when I was married at the time, my wife and I were the primary educators of the children, and that does work. The challenge is that most parents don't think that way. They just think that, okay, well, education is something that has to happen. And so we're going to make it happen. We're going to make sure they get in the school. The school is going to handle it, and it's the school's job to do it, and that's the end of it. And unless we have some sort of a revolutionary change at an essential family level, then we're really not going to see the widespread change that we need in the school system, despite their best efforts and their best intentions. And even if they do become well-funded, they're just not going to be able to get the children to care unless there's, of course, the cooperation of the parents.
Is it really that dismal? Is there no way to provide some kind of a supporting, loving environment even to those kids whose parents are not, for what reason soever, cannot provide it, do not want to provide it, usually are overwhelmed themselves with what's happening?
Right.
Do we really leave them behind because we say it's not the school's job, or the school doesn't have the funding to provide what the parents haven't provided?
I don't think that it's quite that dismal. I think that, some students will find their way no matter what. I think that the school system, if it starts to care a little bit more, systems in general, then they can certainly override a lot of the apathy that's the children are coming from in their homes. However, I think in order to see a widespread change, there would need to be more of a fundamental change. But I'm not opposed to making the changes where they can be made. In fact, that's why I'm getting my doctorate in education, because I believe there can be a change that will be effective to some degree at the school level.
I have a very provocative question for you.
Okay.
I know somewhere you have a product out there which says better grades with hypnotherapy. You have a CD, I think. Actually, I don't think. I know because we are offering it. But which deals with underlying problems which children usually have when they're getting bad grades. So what do you do in the CD? How do you use hypnotherapy to change that? What results do you get?
Well, first of all, understand that the parents who would purchase this type of recording are invested to some degree in the education of their children, because in most cases it's bought for kids who aren't going to have a credit card and aren't going to get online and buy the program themselves. So we already see a skewed group using it. So let's start with that. The results we're seeing are tremendous, though, because this skewed group, the parents who actually do care, are really invested. So they're not just using that recording, they're also doing a number of other things. But the recording is designed to help the students retain information more easily and regurgitate, as I like to say, because a lot of the K-12 experience is just regurgitation. You just get information and then you regurgitate it on test day, and that's it. You're not asked to do a lot of critical thinking or analysis. That usually happens way further ahead in graduate school. So if they can retain facts and have the calmness and confidence to access those facts from their minds once they are in the testing situation and to assemble them in a meaningful way, then that's our goal, and that's what the recording is geared toward.
What underlying issues do you address? Obviously, you go down into beliefs of these kids, which you address so that they can relax in stressful situations, but relaxation alone will not get them better grades. They need to build confidence. What else do you address? Well,
the main thing we address, and this is something that came from the research I did at the University of Florida, when I was a student there. A lot of it has to do with accessing information. And Dr. Levy, who was a professor at the University of Florida when I was a graduate student in psychology there, he really got me turned on to this concept with some of the research that he was doing. And essentially, it's a challenge of access. You've got the information in there, you've got to access that information. And so we have a retrieval situation. Dr. Fischler, actually, who is a Stanford graduate, was one of my professors as well, and he also encouraged me, so I should give him credit as well, Dr. Ira Fischler. But we see that the main challenge is a retrieval challenge. It's not that the information isn't in there. They read it, they get it in their heads. It's just where did it go, and is it going to be available on test day? So that's the main thing that we're working with when we talk about improving grades. But yes, there are those other dimensions that you touched on, which is confidence. I mean, they have to believe that they can do it. Caring, they have to actually care about it. So I talk a lot in the recording about building up your desire to learn. Just the things that you'll get from it, the good feelings you'll have from getting good grades and things like that. Because some of these kids, they just until they listen to the recording or something like it, it's not really part of their what makes them feel good. If they got a good grade, they would think, so what? What's on TV? Or what can I watch on YouTube? Or let me get on Facebook. They don't really care about grades. So
are you
a
sure?
part of it.
Is that not, if they don't care about grades, is that not a result of having gotten so many bad grades that they decide that that's not the most important thing?
I'm not talking about cause and effect. I'm just saying that's where they are. How they got there through a number of different avenues. That could very well have been one of the avenues they traveled down, which is being beat up by the school system. Yes, that's a very valid point. Okay, so my challenge comes here. What would happen if you would test your CD school-wide? Take one test school, get all the kids to be able to listen to it for a certain amount of time and watch for the results. What do you think would happen? The results would be good. We did that in my master's degree a few years back. We did that at Armstrong Atlantic State University under Professor Patricia Koberly, and her current name is Professor Patricia Koberly-Holt. She got remarried. But we did a test, and that was part of the research. We administered in a double-blind study some people getting just a generic motivation recording, hypnosis, and some people getting a better grades recording. And the results showed conclusively that the ones who got the better grades recording, again, they didn't know which one they were getting, those students did better. And then we reported our results at the AACE, the American Association of College Educators. We reported those results at their annual meeting, I believe it was in Norfolk, Virginia, we were very well received there for those findings. So I know, at least in higher education, that it works. Since my education has been, my higher education has been focused on helping higher education educators, I don't have any K-12 information, but I do believe it would have the same or very similar results.
What do you think you should need to, or what you needed to put together to help discouraged kids in K-12 education to get rid of that discouragement, to build their self-confidence, to build their self-esteem, to then start feeling rewarded by better grades? Do you think there's something someone like you could put together which actually could change a whole school around? I mean, if you tell me that the results were measurable, why not start rethinking education in public schools in these kinds of terms?
Well, the reason
you don't have to pay teachers for that. You only pay the program once.
There's a really good reason for that. Parents are afraid of hypnosis. They don't want their kids hypnotized. They don't want to think that their kid's going into class and they're going to, be put under some kind of trance. They have a lot of misconceptions about it, like we talked about at the beginning of this interview. That's why it hasn't gotten any traction. It would have to be renamed or relabeled as something like motivation or something like that. But even then, there would be some potential uprisings, and the schools in general, the school system, the educational system in the United States of America does not want to deal with that. They don't want to hear about it, so they shy away from it.
But they do want their students to perform better, and they shy away from ideas which are, to me, that is difficult to understand.
Well, it's all politics. I mean, they don't want to be fired. They don't want to get in any kind of trouble. They don't want to have difficult lives. They want to do their job to the quote-unquote best of their ability, but they really don't want to get into any territory that would be highly controversial. Because realize that educators are being scrutinized every day by parents, and you give them one little thing and they'll be fired.
Why doesn't a school administration or even an educator, I mean, they get measured by the test results of the kids, what they get on the standardized tests. Now, if I were a teacher, I am a teacher, but I'm not in that strict American school system. I have more freedom here. And we do have a little bit more concern about the emotional side of schooling and not only the academic side, although this is very deficient in Germany too. But why doesn't a teacher, if he has access to these programs, and it is proven that the results on standardized tests, the grades that are being scored improve, then obviously that helps the teacher's standing within the school. So he doesn't, or she or whoever it is, doesn't have to make it compulsory. Why not offer it to kids and parents and talk about the benefits and give a speech in advance that it's not the usual concept of fear-based hypnosis, but something just about relaxation and the way the brain works and the way that it works a lot better in retrieving once it's relaxed, and then try it out with those kids and parents who wish to get better in school.
Well, that could work, and it has worked when it's repackaged when hypnosis is repackaged as something more motivational. There are programs that are out there that are hypnosis-based that are disguised actually as not being hypnosis-based. There are a lot of weight loss programs on TV that are disguised as motivation when they're actually hypnosis. Unfortunately, that's the way they have to go. They have to hide the hypnosis part, and that doesn't sound right at all, or they have to rename it. But that has worked. That has happened, but it hasn't happened on a wide scale yet because, with a little bit of research, you can find out that these programs actually are hypnosis-based, and there could potentially be some challenges that arise because of that with parents in schools.
So is everybody being afraid of being sued?
Yeah, being sued, losing their jobs, being ostracized from the community, looking like they're into voodoo or something like that, because parents have all kinds of ideas about hypnosis. Well, people in general do. It's kind of like the Apple computer a few years back. It wasn't, the PC was the way to go, and the Apple was only 10% of the market. Now we see that it's really improved its standing. It's kind of like that. It's kind of an advertising challenge. Hypnosis doesn't have the good advertising that it needs yet.
To my perception, hypnosis doesn't, but hypnotherapy does.
Well, there you go.
Hypnosis has gotten all this bad appeal because of these popular TV shows where people are put into an instant trance, and then they exactly what you sometimes do on the streets, like they forget certain numbers or make silly things, so that obviously puts everyone into fear. And I think I heard sometime that no hypnosis can ever put anyone into doing stuff they would their innermost wouldn't agree with. I mean, if you hypnotize me, you wouldn't make me be able to make me murder anybody else, because within myself I don't have that feeling, ability, wish to murder anybody. And no matter of how much hypnosis you put on me, you will not get me to do that. You will get me to do silly stuff, which is harmless, but not something that is very harmful. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. That is absolutely true. And yeah, there are demonstrations of hypnosis. I do some myself, where I can cause temporary amnesia instantly. I can cause someone to forget a number. It won't last long, but I can cause them to forget it. I can cause them to forget their name and so forth. But nothing damaging, because they do have that, as you said, that safety mechanism, which causes them not to do anything that would violate their morals, that would go against the grain of their core thinking.
Mm-hmm. So basically what it comes down to is that you have to change the label, or rather it has been labeled into something which is might be dangerous and is hazardous to you and makes you do stuff you don't really want to do. So once you get the information out from the research-based studies on hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and it is proven by scientists on what really takes place and how it really works, I'd love to see that information come forward, because I feel that it's one of the most powerful tools to rewire certain, especially fears we grow up with, and it's proven to be so very, very successful with many things which hamper our success in daily life.
Oh, absolutely. And the research is there. I'll be presenting something in April for educators for this type of research with enhancing student development and test scores and so forth. But it really lacks funding. I remember when I was a student at the University of Florida, a graduate student, I found out about the funding process, and really the government grants and so forth that are interested in, or military grants that are interested in researching certain things. And if hypnosis is on the hot list at that time, then it gets researched. And if not, which usually not, then it doesn't. So we will probably never see widespread hypnosis research on a very deep level, at least not among the people who really should be doing it, which would be the university professors. What we will see are occasional research projects done by graduate students, and occasionally a professor will go off on his or her own and do some research. But we probably won't, unfortunately, see, at least in the near future, this widespread, deep research that needs to be done.
Well, not everything we know that works well needs to be researched. I mean, there's many things we know help us tremendously without scientific research proving it. The experience alone, that if I haven't had the ability to stop smoking, and after 3 sessions of hypnotherapy or hypnosis, I'm rid of it. If I have a fear of public speaking and I listen to your CDs for a certain amount of time, I can suddenly stand up in a public place and speak freely. All these experiences are there on a grand scale.
Right. I do completely agree with that, and I believe that that's what we've got at this time, and that's very powerful testimony.
Yeah. One more thing I'd like to speak about is self-esteem. What is your take on the importance of self-esteem towards learning?
Well, I believe that self-esteem is everything. In fact, when I start working with someone, that's what I start with. I always start with self-esteem, whether we're working on smoking cessation or weight loss or improving grades. I'm always going to start with self-esteem because it's the underpinning of everything. With a healthy belief in yourself system, you can do everything, and without it, it's difficult to do anything. So I believe that it all starts with that, and just getting rid of those labels, those limiting labels we've given to ourselves and we received from others in the past, like loser and good for nothing, and all these labels that sometimes float around in our heads. We need to get rid of those, and then, and only then, can we move forward with whatever it is we are specifically working on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I feel the same, and actually I'm very grateful to you, or rather your office, because you're offering this very special offer for our listeners. Your newest technology CD on self-esteem. One is on self-esteem, and the other one is on getting better grades. And we have a very special offer for our our listeners actually at 50% off, which they can access at whattheexpertsknow.com/Steve Special. And in addition to that, you have a real beautiful bonus CD, which I think everyone loves to get, and that's on abundance. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The abundance recording?
Yeah.
Sure. Abundance is... Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to think as much on we talked about self-esteem, we talked about the better grades, so the abundance is lacking, but if you have any additional information on any of those, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, sure. Well, all of the recordings, abundance included, they all use something called binaural tones or binaural beats, and the binaural tones are very important because they sort of help deliver the message more powerfully. And we can thank Heinrich Dove, who studied at the University of Berlin, by the way, for discovering binaural tones and binaural beats. Same thing, binaural tones and binaural beats. And that is, what that means is that you can hear binaural tones and binaural beats don't actually exist, interestingly enough. They're an auditory artifact. If we have a frequency of, let's say, 50 hertz in our right ear and 100 hertz in our left ear, we're going to hear the difference between those in the middle. We're going to hear 75 right in the middle. So we're going to hear the difference between, actually we hear 50 in the middle, we just subtract. So when we hear that difference in the middle, we don't really realize that it's not there. It's something that we perceive and we think is there, but it's not really there. So this phantom effect that we call the binaural tones or binaural beats turns out to be very powerful in aiding the message, which is also delivered at the same time, the words, that is, to the subconscious mind. And so this research that was done so long ago, I mean, this was discovered in 1839 by Heinrich Dove. So this technology that we use today, that we consider cutting edge, it's really old, but it's recently come to our attention how powerful it is. This allows the message to go to the subconscious mind more powerfully. So I've redone my recordings adding this technology, which was recently rediscovered in the world of hypnosis. And the abundance recording specifically delivers the message that you are abundant, not just more money, but more friends, more happiness, more money too, but more of everything. And you may wonder, well, how can recording deliver that? How can I get more friends and so forth just from listening to recording? What it does is it opens your mind to it. It opens your mind to possibilities. And you start accepting those offers to hang out with people. You start accepting those offers to make more money, whereas in the past you may have turned them down because of not believing in them or not thinking that you were good enough for them. But now you start accepting them. And so your world starts to open up. So that's what the abundance recording is about in particular.
Well, personally, I've tried it, to be honest, and what I found is that it not only makes me more open towards opportunities, but actually I start searching these opportunities, which I never felt were there for me. And it really is, it's an opening, and to me the amazing thing is things have coming flooding in since then. I feel like I'm being bombarded with abundance on levels I had never dreamt that were mine.
Well,
so personally, I can really attest to the power of this. Wonderful.
Good.
Well, is there anything else you would like to add? We're coming to the end of the hour.
Well, I would like to say that in relation to hypnosis, I always like to end interviews with a quote from the musical group America. And they had a hit, I think it was in the 1970s. It was a favorite song of mine, and one of the lines in the song went like this. It says, Oz, meaning the Wizard of Oz, never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. A reference to the Wizard of Oz giving the Tin Man something that he thought he didn't have. And he just gave him a physical representation of something that he already had, and that's what he gave to everyone. Well, that's kind of what hypnosis is. It's something that you already have, and no one needs to give it to you. I don't need to give it to you. Astrid doesn't need to give it to you. No one needs to give it to you. You already have it. But sometimes we need to be reminded of what we already have, the greatness we already have within us. And that's where hypnosis comes into play. And that's why I like that line from that song so much, that Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. I'm not giving anything to you through hypnosis that you don't already have. I'm just reminding you of the greatness that's within you. So if you feel you need a little help, a little kickstart, a little jump start, a little push in the right direction, then let hypnosis be that for you. Let it be that representation for you to remind you of the greatness that you already have and to help pull it out of you so that you can use it and get on with things and move forward in your life.
What a beautiful vision. How can people get to you? What is your website?
My personal website?
No, well, if anybody wants to contact you, find out more about your work, about the other products you're offering,
sure.
Where do they go?
My website is just my name, SteveGJones.com. Steve G as in Gregory, Jones.com.
Beautiful. Yes, and there's tons of stuff on there. I've researched it thoroughly preparing for this interview, and as I said, I actually purchased some things I felt so inclined towards, and it's worked for me already in attracting speakers and attracting opportunities I wasn't aware of. So I am very, very grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Astrid, and I'm grateful to you for helping people like me bring information like this to people who need it.
Thank you. You're welcome, and I love the way you really are able to bring this out and the work you do, and I'm so glad that this is an opportunity to stop some of the grave misperceptions towards a tool which really can be so marvelous.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful day, and thank you.
You too, Astrid.
Bye-bye.